You know, there is this incredibly universal, just like almost physically painful feeling that I think literally every single person listening to this right now has experienced, probably more than once, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
It's that exact moment when you have a burning passion or like a truly great idea or even just this massive long-term goal that you care deeply about.
Right.
And in your head, you know, at 3 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling, it is perfect. It is pristine.
It's flawless in the abstract.
Exactly. But the second you try to bring it into the real world, the absolute second it hits the messy, chaotic reality of like a busy Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
you know, with your inbox overflowing and the kids screaming and the car needing an oil change, it just feels like it is slipping right through your fingers.
Yeah, it shatters.
It totally
It
shatters.
shatters on impact with reality.
Yeah.
And it's a profound kind of grief, honestly. We all know that exact feeling.
We really do.
You possess the desire, right? The raw fuel is there,
Hmm.
but the transmission between that internal desire and the external outcome is completely fundamentally broken.
Mm-hmm.
And the engine just revs in neutral until it overheats.
Yes. Revving in neutral, that's the perfect way to describe it. And what's the normal response to that?
Blame.
Right. The normal response is to turn completely inward and blame ourselves. We think, I must be lazy, or I just don't have enough willpower, or, you know, the absolute worst one, I guess I just didn't want it badly enough.
Which is such a toxic trap.
It is. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I have tried to launch a side project, watched it fizzle out after maybe 3 weeks, and then spent the next 6 months beating myself up over my supposed lack of character.
Oh, I've been there too. We all have.
But today, we're going to completely dismantle that narrative. So, welcome back to the deep dive. Today's stack of sources is, frankly, incredibly dense.
Very dense.
But I promise you, it is profoundly life-changing. We are looking at this fascinating, almost mind-bending blend of cognitive behavioral studies, performance psychology papers, and the core text of this sort of underground manuscript known simply as metamatics.
Yeah, and the reason this specific stack of sources is so vital is that it forces us to shift our entire perspective on human ambition.
How so?
Well, we're going to stop treating personal development as this vague, mystical, highly emotional journey.
Okay.
And we're going to start treating it as a rigorous, architectural, entirely solvable engineering problem.
I love the sound of that.
Think about it. If your car engine is stalling on the highway, you don't sit in the driver's seat, grip the steering wheel, and question your moral character.
Right. You don't start crying about how you're a bad person because the car stopped.
Exactly. You don't say, my car stopped because I don't have enough willpower. You open the hood, you find the disconnected wire or the rusted spark plug, and you fix the mechanics.
Makes total sense.
This source material, mathematics, gives us the actual literal manual for the human operational engine.
Okay, I love that. Let's really unpack this and lay out the mission for today's deep dive. We are going to synthesize the operators, the brackets, and the variable construction of this entire system.
Right, the whole architecture.
Yeah, to build what the manuscript calls the final complete root square chart.
It's quite a title.
It is. But because reading a math textbook out loud is literally nobody's idea of a good time, we are going to make this incredibly concrete.
We need to ground it.
Exactly. We are going to lean fully into the journey of an ice cream entrepreneur. We're going to track her evolution across all 4 branches of this chart.
It's the perfect way to do it.
Right. We are going to watch her build a life, hit walls, fail, and rebuild using this exact mathematical framework.
It really is the perfect case study. Because to even begin to understand the root square chart, you have to first understand its physical architecture.
The actual leg out of it.
Yes. It is a spatial hierarchical map. So if you're listening right now, I want you to imagine a massive physical blueprint rolled out on a large drafting table right in front of you.
Okay, let's visualize this blueprint. What are we actually looking at here? Because when I first saw the diagrams in the source, I'm not gonna lie, it looked like a cross between a corporate org chart and like a geometric mandala.
That's a great description. You're looking at a perfect square, and dead in the center of that square is what the text calls the root.
The root.
Right, the root represents 100% of the value of the system. It is the emergent integrated whole. It is pure potential.
Okay, 100%.
But here is the first major paradigm shift of the manuscript. You cannot actually do the root.
Wait, hold on. If it's the center of the whole thing, why can't I do it?
Because the root is a final destination. It's the ultimate state of being you are trying to achieve.
Like what?
something like integrated professional excellence or authentic creative mastery. Or in the case of our entrepreneur, a wildly successful community-beloved ice cream empire.
Oh, I see.
You can't just wake up on a Tuesday and execute empire.
Yeah.
It's an emergent property. It only happens when all the underlying structures are perfectly aligned.
Okay, so the root is the center, the 100%, the ultimate goal. What grows out of it? Like, how do we actually build the foundation for that?
So growing directly out of the root, reaching to the four corners of the square, are four branches.
4 branches, got it.
These are your foundational capability domains.
Hmm.
And they are named power, presence, proclivities, and proclamations.
That's a lot of P's.
It is. But mathematically, if the root is 100%, the chart dictates that each of these four branches carries exactly 25% of the structural load.
Okay, so they're equal.
Completely equal. You cannot over-index on one and ignore the others. A system with 50% power and 0% presence will just collapse. You need all four.
I mean, I buy that conceptually, but a branch like power or presence is still way too abstract for me.
How so?
Well, I can't wake up on a Wednesday, look at my calendar, and just put do presence on my to-do list at 10 a.m. Like, my brain doesn't know what muscles to flex to achieve that.
Exactly. And that is a neurological reality, not a personal failing. You cannot practice a noun.
Oh, wow.
Presence
Yeah.
is a noun. So the framework moves one layer further out. Growing out of each of those four branches are the leaves.
The leaves, okay.
There are exactly 3 leaves per branch, making 12 leaves in total across the entire chart.
So the 25% gets split again.
Right. If a branch is 25%, each leaf represents roughly 8.33% of the total system.
Okay, I'm following the math.
A leaf is a functional state or an operational capacity. For example, under the presence branch, you might have a leaf called active listening, or under the power branch, a leaf called financial literacy.
Okay, that's getting a little closer. Active listening feels a bit more tactical, but it still feels, I don't know, like a broad concept rather than a specific acute action I can take in the next 5 seconds.
Which brings us to the absolute edge of the blueprint, the ground floor of reality. Growing out of every single one of those 12 leaves are exactly 3 fruits.
3 fruits per leaf.
Yes, 3 fruits per leaf means there are 36 fruits in total. Each fruit represents roughly 2.78% of your total transformational load.
Okay.
These fruits are the irreducible atomic actions. They are verbs. They are the absolute only things your central nervous system can actually literally execute in physical space.
Okay, wait. I have to stop you right there.
What's wrong?
Because I am channeling the listener's internal panic right now. My heart rate literally just spiked.
Over the fruits.
Yes. You just said there are 36 fruits. If you are telling me that this life-changing framework requires me to track, monitor, and execute 36 micro habits every single day, I'm going to burn out before I even finish my morning coffee.
I completely understand that reaction.
Seriously, who has the cognitive bandwidth to run 36 distinct behaviors simultaneously? That sounds like a prison of productivity.
It's a completely valid panic. And it's the exact reaction almost everyone has when they first see the full chart. But you can take a deep breath.
Oh, thank goodness.
System does not demand that. In fact, the text explicitly clarifies that you never, ever practice all 36 fruits at once.
Never.
Never. That would cause immediate cognitive fragmentation. The 36 fruits represent your total available inventory. They are your complete toolbox.
Oh, okay, so it's a menu, not a daily quota.
Precisely. On any given day, depending on the specific demands of the room you're entering or, the crisis you were facing, you only pull 3 specific fruits into your active RAM.
Into your working memory.
Yes, you leave 33 fruits completely dormant on the shelf, and you focus all your caloric energy on executing just 3 specific verbs.
Just 3. That is so much better.
Right. And remember what we said about nouns versus verbs. You cannot practice a noun like leadership. You can only execute a verb, a fruit, like waiting a full 3 seconds after someone finishes speaking before you open your mouth to respond.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly specific.
That is an atomic action. That is a fruit. Your brain knows exactly how to do that.
Okay, that makes it so much more manageable. I can do 3 things. So we have our map, the root in the center, the 4 branches dividing the load, the 12 functional leaves, and the 36 atomic verb-based fruits on the edge.
You've got it.
Now let's bring in our running case study to ground all of this heavy architecture into actual human flesh and blood.
Let's do it.
I want you, the listener, to imagine you are 22 years old, you are young, energetic, and you absolutely fundamentally love the sensory experience of eating strawberry ice cream.
A very pure desire.
Exactly, the intense chill hitting your teeth, the creamy texture, the smell of the waffle cones baking in the shop. It is your favorite thing in the world. Now, in the language of the source material, this raw, authentic, visceral desire is our starting variable. It is the unshaped atom of our deep dive.
And having that raw atom of desire is beautiful. It is the spark of all human endeavor. But, and the manuscript is very harsh on this point, on its own, raw desire is entirely useless.
Useless!
Yes. You can have all 36 atomic fruits perfectly defined. You can have a heart full of passion. But if you don't know how these elements interact with each other, and more importantly, with the friction of the real world, you just have a static list of dreams.
That hits hard.
The Metamatics manuscript uses a pseudo-algebraic system to map how these elements actually combine in real time. It provides the physics of the system.
Let's get into this pseudo-algebra, because I have to admit, when I first read the sources, seeing mathematical symbols applied to squishy human behavior and emotion was wild.
It's definitely unconventional.
It felt cold at first, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized it is incredibly precise. It gives you a language for the things we usually just vaguely complain about.
Exactly.
Now, the outline suggests we should just list the 4 core operators, but let's not do that. Let's watch our ice cream entrepreneur actually use them as she hits the real world.
That's a much better approach. So let's start with her raw desire. She wants to build a strawberry ice cream shop. She has the passion.
Right.
But immediately she hits her first wall. The real estate market in her city is incredibly expensive, the zoning laws are strict, and the neighborhood she wants to open in is predominantly filled with young professionals who are extremely health conscious.
Right. So her raw passion is violently colliding with reality. And this is where most people quit. They say, oh, the universe is telling me no.
Right, the universe.
But in mathematics, this is just the first operator, the division operator, represented by the forward slash. But it does not mean mathematical division, right? Because normally division means making something smaller, like cutting a pie in half.
Correct. In this grammar, division represents contextual filtering.
Contextual filter.
When you write the equation A over B, or A divided by B, it means variable A is filtered, shaped, or constrained by variable B. And here is the unbreakable fundamental rule of this grammar.
What is it?
The denominator always governs. The bottom variable is the rigid constraint that shapes the raw fuel of the top variable.
The sources use a fantastic analogy for this, which I think makes it instantly clear. Water and the iron pipe.
Yes, the pipe analogy.
The numerator, variable A, is the water. It's your raw energy, your ambition, your desire to build that ice cream shop. It's incredibly powerful, but on its own, it's totally shapeless. It just spills everywhere and evaporates.
Exactly.
The denominator, variable B, is the iron pipe. It's the reality of the situation. It's the budget you have, the city zoning laws, the demographics of your neighborhood. The pipe doesn't generate the power, but it dictates exactly where and how the water can flow.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The denominator governs. So our entrepreneur's raw passion for ice cream is placed in the numerator, and it is filtered by or divided by the local neighborhood demographics and the zoning laws in the denominator.
And what does that do?
That shaping process creates her initial business model. She realizes she can't just open a massive 1950s-style parlor. The pipe is forcing her to design a sleek, minimalist, grab-and-go shop with organic ingredients. The constraint actually gives her dream its shape.
Wow. So the obstacle becomes the blueprint. But shaping it isn't enough to make it grow. Once she has that filtered model, she needs momentum. Which brings us to the second operator, the multiplication sign, the asterisk.
Right.
In this system, multiplication represents synergistic amplification. This isn't just adding customers, it's reciprocal intensification. It's when A and B strengthen each other, creating an exponential feedback loop.
Exactly. So for our entrepreneur, maybe her carefully filtered business model is multiplied by active community engagement.
Like events.
Yeah, she starts hosting free tasting events on Saturday afternoons. The more she engages with the local families, the more data she gets to improve her business model. And the better her business model becomes, the more the community wants to engage with her.
That makes total sense.
They mutually accelerate each other. It's not just adding 1 + 1 to get 2. It's a synergistic loop that creates a 5 or a 10.
I love that.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really human. She's got the model, she's got the community loop, but she is exhausted.
Always happens.
She is working 100 hours a week because she refuses to launch a new flavor until she has tweaked the recipe for 6 months. She is plagued by absolute paralyzing perfectionism.
Yes.
If she keeps this up, the whole equation is going to collapse under its own weight.
And that introduces the third operator subtraction, the minus sign. This represents strategic elimination.
Strategic elimination.
And I want to be very precise here. Contaminant is the word the text uses. Subtraction here doesn't mean you are losing something valuable. It means you are deliberately purifying the main variable.
Okay, so getting rid of the bad stuff.
Yes, her perfectionism is a contaminant. It is halting the flow of the entire system. It's like sludge in the iron pike. So she has to actively deploy the subtraction operator.
How does she do that?
She must execute her business plan minus her perfectionism. She has to force herself to release the good enough batch of vanilla bean, even if she thinks it needs a quarter teaspoon more salt.
Which is terrifying for an entrepreneur, but mathematically necessary.
Very much so.
And that leaves us with the final core operator addition, the plus sign, integrative synthesis. This is combining separate purified elements to create a higher order system with emergent properties.
Right. It's bridging completely separate domains. Our entrepreneur takes her passion, which has been filtered by demographics, amplified by the community, and purified to perfectionism, and she synthesizes it. She adds it to a rock-solid, boring, traditional financial plan.
The boring stuff.
But the necessary stuff, the addition creates a stable, multifaceted reality. She's integrated the magic of the ice cream with the cold reality of accounting.
Okay, so we have these operators flying around. We've got slashes and asterisks and minus signs connecting these variables. But if I'm picturing this equation written out on a whiteboard, it's getting incredibly long and complicated.
It gets unwieldy very fast.
Right. If you just have a massive string of variables and operators, it's just mathematical chaos. How does the human brain keep the system organized without panicking?
That is where the architecture of brackets comes in. Our brains naturally want to group information to reduce cognitive load.
Oh, sure. Chunking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The text outlines 3 levels of brackets that prevent the system from dissolving into noise. The most basic are parentheses. Parentheses contain your basic conceptual units. They resolve the immediate microequations so you can treat them as a single chunk of data.
So, for example, placing her raw passion and then neighborhood demographics inside parentheses. Passion divided by demographics.
Yes.
Once she figures out how those two interact, it becomes one unified concept in her mind, a viable product idea. She doesn't have to constantly rethink the friction. It's resolved inside the parentheses.
Exactly. It frees up RAM. Then you step up to the next level of complexity, square brackets.
Square brackets.
Square brackets encompass systemic frameworks. Once you have a complex set of parentheses resolved and interacting with other variables, you put square brackets around the whole thing to signify that this is a completed, transportable subsystem.
Transportable. That is a key word right there. So she can take this entire square bracket, let's say it represents her fully functioning, perfected local marketing strategy, and she can plug it into a completely different context.
That's the beauty of it.
If she opens a second location across town, she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. She just copy-pastes the square bracket.
Precisely. And the final highest level of organization is curly brackets.
The curly ones.
These are the conditional meta frameworks. They are the overarching if-then adaptive rules that govern the whole system. They dictate when to deploy certain square brackets.
Give me an example of that.
For example, if it is the dead of winter and snowing, deploy the hot beverage strategy bracket. If it is the peak of summer, deploy the ice cream strategy bracket. Curly brackets give the system its adaptive intelligence. It prevents her from stubbornly trying to sell sorbet in a blizzard.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. We've talked about the standard addition sign, but earlier you mentioned that when 3 fruits combine to form a leaf, they don't use a normal plus sign.
No, they don't.
The text is very specific about this. It uses a circled plus sign, which looks like a crosshair. Why the circle? Why add a completely new symbol to the math?
Because the circle represents the profound difference between a pile of bricks and a finished house. The standard plus sign is simple, linear addition. You put an apple next to an orange, you have 2 pieces of fruit.
Right.
But the circled plus sign represents chemical synthesis. It means emergence.
Like combining hydrogen and oxygen to get water. Water doesn't behave like a gas, even though it's made of 2 gases.
Exactly. It creates a completely new functional state that possesses qualities none of the individual components had on their own. When you combine 3 atomic fruits, Using the circled plus, you don't just get a mental checklist of 3 completed tasks. You unlock a new capability.
But this brings up what is arguably the most mind-bending and honestly frustrating part of the entire manuscript, the math paradox.
Yes, the paradox.
The text calls it the fourth quarter principle. Let's walk through this carefully because I spent hours staring at the source material trying to make sense of this.
Take your time with it because it is the absolute crux of why high performers either succeed or inexplicably burn out. If you understand this, you understand the secret engine of human achievement.
Right. Okay, let's look at a branch on our blueprint. We established that a branch represents 100% of a foundational capability domain, like power or presence. We also established that a branch is composed of exactly 3 leaves. Now, basic 3rd grade elementary school arithmetic tells us that if you cut a pie into 3 equal pieces, each piece is 33.3%.
Naturally.
But the source text stops you and explicitly states in bold letters that each leaf is exactly 25%.
It is a rigid, non-negotiable rule in the mathematics of this framework.
But 3 times 25 is 75. If I spend years perfectly building all 3 of my leaves, I only have 75% of a functional branch. The math is literally missing a quarter.
It looks that way.
Where is the missing 25%? Does the text just secretly tax our personal development? Is the universe taking a cut?
It is not a tax, I promise. It is the most vital 25% of the entire human experience. The missing 25% is the kinetic overlap. It's the tailored, real-time utilization of the components.
Oh, analogy time. The sources have this brilliant systems analogy for the plug and outlet model. I love this so much because it instantly makes sense.
Walk us through it.
Imagine you are in a pitch black room and you desperately need light to read a map. You have fruit number 1, which is a beautifully crafted, gold-plated electrical plug. That is 25% of your system.
Okay.
Then you have fruit number 2, which is a perfectly wired, grounded, high-voltage wall outlet. That is another 25%. And fruit number 3 is your unparalleled, deep theoretical knowledge of how electrical currents work. You have a PhD in the physics of voltage. That is your third 25%.
So you possess the perfect 75%. You have what the text calls the pristine, bound identification of the system. Your individual components are flawless. But let me ask you, is the lamp emitting any actual light into the room?
No, it's completely dark. I'm standing there with a plug in one hand, staring at an outlet, thinking about electricity, and I still can't see anything. Because the final 25% isn't another physical object. It isn't a better plug. It isn't more knowledge or another degree. The final 25% is the physical, kinetic act of taking the plug and violently shoving it into the outlet. That moment of friction, that act of integration, that overlap, that is the missing quarter.
And this is where so many incredibly talented, brilliant people completely fail in life.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. They spend their entire lives accumulating the 75%. They get degree after degree. They read every self-help book. They meticulously plan their routines, and they sit in the dark wondering why they aren't producing any light.
That is so true.
The text has a great foil for this, a persona we can call Mark the engineer.
Oh, Mark. We've all worked with a Mark. I think at certain points in my life, I have been Mark.
Mark has done the work on his 75%. He has an incredible work ethic. He is a top-tier technical coder. He has a massive network of industry contacts. His raw ingredients, his leaves, are flawless.
That's a great hire.
But Mark's career is totally stalled. He's been passed over for promotion 3 times, and his team secretly resents him. Why? Because his kinetic overlap is a 0.
How does that manifest in the real world? Like, what is he actually doing wrong?
He takes his amazing work ethic, but he applies it by grinding in total isolation for 14 hours the night before a major software deployment.
Oh.
He completely rewrites the code base and causes a massive traumatizing panic for the QA team the next morning. Or he takes his brilliant technical skills to a networking event, and instead of building a bridge, he uses his knowledge to arrogantly belittle his peers' ideas.
Right. He has the perfect plug and the perfect outlet, but he's trying to plug his laptop into a toaster. The integration is toxic.
Toxic integration, exactly.
And because Mark doesn't understand the fourth quarter principle, what does he do when he fails? He does what we all do. He thinks he just needs to work harder.
More accumulation.
He thinks, I need to learn another coding language. I need to get another certification. I need to go to more networking events. He exhausts himself, piling up more and more 25% components, completely blind to the fact that his only problem is the kinetic overlap.
It's the tragedy of accumulation without synthesis. You cannot stockpile your way to emergence. The overlap is where you actually live your life. It's the moment of tailored utilization. It is the friction of the present moment.
Okay, so we have the variables, we have the operators, we have the synthesis and the critical importance of the kinetic overlap, but this raises a massive, glaring question.
What is it?
We've talked about all these moving parts, but where do you, the listener, the actual human being with a beating heart, fit into this algebraic equation? If my life is the equation passion divided by environment, where am I in that math?
That is the single most important question in the framework.
Yeah.
And it brings us to what the manuscript calls the unity operator, represented simply by the number one.
The number one.
In this system, one is not a value. It is the position of self. It is your consciousness. It dictates the focal agency of the equation.
So it essentially tells us who is actually driving the car at any given moment.
Exactly. Let's look at a single variable, which we will call x. Let's say x represents your daily schedule. If you write the expression as x over 1, meaning x, the schedule, is in the numerator, and you, the 1, are in the denominator. What does that mean based on our unbreakable rule of division?
Well, the rule is that the denominator always governs. It is the iron pipe. So if I, the 1, am in the denominator, I am governing. I am the shaping force.
Yes. When you write the equation as x over 1, you are in what the text calls iterator first mode. You are the active aggressive agent wielding the variable.
Iterator first.
You are saying, I use my schedule. I dictate when I wake up. I dictate when meetings happen. My schedule is shaped entirely by my will. You are in high agency driving mode. You are exerting force on the world.
That sounds great. That sounds like every motivational speaker on the internet telling me to take control of my day. But what if I flip the fraction? What if I write 1 over x? Now 1, the self, is in the numerator, and x, the schedule, is in the denominator.
Because the denominator always governs. 1 over x means you are in delineator first mode. You are yielding.
Yielding to the schedule.
You are saying, I am shaped by my schedule. The calendar dictates my day. The external demands tell me where to be and what to do. I submit to the structure.
So I have to push back here. Isn't one of these objectively better than the other? Because x over 1, being the iterator, sounds like a highly successful alpha CEO who commands their destiny. And 1 over x sounds like someone who has just given up and is letting life happen to them. Why would I ever want to be in the numerator and let the world govern me?
And that assumption is the exact trap that destroys high performers. Neither position is inherently better, and relying exclusively on either one will absolutely destroy you neurologically and psychologically.
Wait, really? Destroy you?
Absolutely. This is why the framework introduces a mandatory mechanical failsafe called the inversion kick.
The inversion kick. I love that term. It sounds like a martial arts move from a sci-fi movie.
It acts like one for your psyche. Human consciousness naturally wants to crystallize. It wants to find one mode that works and stay there forever.
Right.
If you spend 100% of your time in x over 1 mode, iterator first, always governing, always dominating, you think you are being a high performer, but you are actually becoming a tyrant.
A tyrant.
You are constantly forcing your will onto your environment, ignoring all feedback, bulldozing your relationships, and eventually your nervous system will redline. You will suffer a massive catastrophic burnout. Why? Because you are exhausting yourself trying to be the denominator of the entire universe, and you just aren't that strong.
Wow, okay, that hits close to home. Trying to be the denominator of the universe. And what if I swing to the other extreme? What if I spend all my time in 1 over x mode?
You become a completely reactive victim of circumstance. The text calls this an R1V life responsive one variable. You just float aimlessly like a leaf on a stream, letting every external pressure, every demanding boss, every passing market trend, every algorithm shape who you are. You yield to everything. You have zero internal anchor.
So the inversion kick is the deliberate, strategic flipping of your position. You have to alternate between driving and yielding. But how do you know when to flip? It's not like our brains have a dashboard warning light that flashes red when we are being too tyrannical or too passive.
Actually, the framework gives you a literal dashboard. It prescribes a highly specific 20-minute operational ritual called the Sunday audit.
Sunday audit.
Every single Sunday night, you sit down with a piece of paper and you ruthlessly review your behavioral expressions from the past week. You actually count them.
Count them.
Yes. How many times did you operate in x over 1, forcing an issue? How many times in 1 over x, yielding to a constraint? If you look at your paper and see that you have 15x over 1 expressions and 0 1 over x expressions, the math is screaming at you that you are heading for a cliff.
Because you're over-controlling.
You are over-controlling.
Yeah.
So on Monday morning, you must intentionally mechanically deploy the inversion kick and choose to yield. You choose to put yourself in the numerator for a while. You say, today, I will let the team dictate the timeline.
That is profound. It completely removes the emotional guesswork. You literally audit your agency. Let's apply this inversion kick to our ice cream entrepreneur, specifically looking at her proclivities branch. Remember, proclivities are the first foundational branch. They are the deep subterranean architecture of your desire. It's the emotional ground beneath your goals.
And proclivities have a very specific, almost dangerous nature. The text calls them formulative. To explain this, imagine a river.
Okay, a river.
If you take a photograph of a river, it looks static, solid, fixed. You can design and build a bridge based on that photograph. But if you go back to that exact same spot 5 years later, the currents have shifted, the banks have eroded, maybe a drought has lowered the water level. The river is dynamically, physically different across time.
So let's jump our entrepreneur forward in time. She is now 32 years old. A full decade has passed since she formulated her original 100% authentic dream to open that strawberry dairy ice cream shop.
She's older. Things have changed.
Right. She did the work, she secured the loan, she built the plan, she signed the lease. But biology happens. Her body changes. Over the last few years, she has developed a mild dairy intolerance.
Oh, wow.
It's not life-threatening, but eating a bowl of traditional ice cream is now a low-grade, uncomfortable negotiation with her stomach. It makes her feel heavy and sluggish, and honestly, after a decade of obsessing over the exact same flavor profile, the strawberry concept is just, well, it's boring to her.
Her river has moved. The photograph she took at 22 is no longer accurate. Her internal landscape of desire has fundamentally shifted beneath her feet.
But her stated goal, the beautiful laminated business plan sitting on her desk, the promise she made to her investors is still open a dairy ice cream shop. This brings us to a critical existential crossroads. Scenario A versus Scenario B.
If she ignores the shift and stays permanently locked in x over 1 control mode, she refuses to yield to her new biological reality. She forces the issue. She pushes the old agenda. This leads to Scenario A, which the text clinically calls proclivity drift without descriptive update.
What happens to her in Scenario A? Because I feel like I see this happen to people all the time.
It's tragic. She builds the shop exactly as planned at 22. She opens the doors, the lines are around the block, but she is physically unable to eat her own product. She stands behind the counter, watching her customers enjoying the ice cream, and subconsciously, a dark resentment begins to build.
Because it's not her anymore.
She is executing a past self's mission. The text has an incredibly visceral, haunting phrase for this. She is experiencing wet wood burnout.
Wet wood burnout. Wow.
Yes, her mission, the physical structure of the shop, is totally intact, but the core desire that fueled it, the wood in the fireplace, is damp and rotting. It won't catch fire anymore.
And she's just surrounded by smoke.
And the tragedy is she blames herself. She thinks she is just ungrateful or depressed or lazy when in reality it's just a mechanical mismatch. She is running Ice Cream Shop version 1.0 on a version 3.0 nervous system.
That is heartbreaking. But what if she uses the Sunday audit? What if she sits down, looks at her resentment, realizes she is stuck in an x over 1 tyrant loop against her own changing body, and she deploys the inversion kick?
She yields.
She shifts to 1 over x. She yields to the new biological reality. She lets the environment, her own physiology, act as the denominator and shape her for a moment. This is Scenario B.
Scenario B is proclivity evolution with descriptive update. Because she yields, she takes a pause, she steps back, she takes a trip to a different city and tries a brilliantly crafted dairy-free mango sorbet or a perfectly balanced lime basil gelato.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Suddenly the neurological light bulb goes off. She updates her description. She realizes, my fundamental proclivity, the deep river of my desire, wasn't actually for dairy. It wasn't just for strawberry. My true underlying desire, the real Adam, is for iced, creamy, cold-treated culinary experiences.
Oh, that is so empowering. The overarching goal survives, but it transforms. She updates the software. The desire is instantly reignited because her map now matches the new actual terrain.
Exactly.
She pivots the business plan. She builds a shop specializing in artisanal gelato and hyper-premium dairy-free sorbets. She is energized again. The wet wood is replaced with dry kindling and the fire roars back to life.
Which is a beautiful, necessary realization. But having an updated burning desire still doesn't get the physical doors of a business open. A pure proclivity, no matter how authentic, doesn't sign a commercial lease.
Right. It's just potential energy.
Hmm.
To actually impact reality, we have to move to the second branch, the power branch. And I have to say, the way this framework defines power completely shifted how I view my own resume and my own skill sets.
That's a very different definition.
The text defines power not as raw, aggressive force, not as yelling the loudest in a meeting, but as the backing force that strikes specific nodes.
Yes. To manifest her updated gelato shop, she has to physically interact with reality. And reality is not a smooth, open field. Reality is made of nodes.
Nodes.
Nodes are the physical contact points, the gatekeepers, the rigid structures of society. The city health inspector is a node. The commercial landlord is a node. The loan officer at the bank is a critical node.
And here's the kicker, the thing that tricks up so many passionate people: you cannot strike a node with a general noun or a raw emotion.
You absolutely cannot.
Our entrepreneur cannot walk into the bank, sit across from the loan officer, and try to strike that node with raw creativity or passion for sorbet. The bank literally does not have the sensory apparatus to care about her passion. She must strike the node with a wieldable nounship.
A wieldable nounship is a profound concept. It is a raw capacity that has been deliberately forged, hammered, and sharpened in the fires of discipline into a specific deployable tool.
So it's not just a hobby.
Right. Knowing a lot about food is a vague abstraction. Culinary formulator is a wieldable nounship. It has edges. But even having one sharp tool isn't enough. The power branch dictates that you require a portfolio of power.
Exactly. Because she can be the greatest culinary formulator on earth, she can make a sorbet that makes people weep, but if she can't strike the bank node, the shop never opens and no one ever tastes it.
The nodes stop you.
She must also force herself to forge and wield the nounship of capital manager to get the loan, and the nounship of community builder to strike the customer node and get foot traffic.
And what's brilliant and incredibly relieving about this structural view is how it completely reframes the concept of failure.
How does it reframe it?
If she goes to the bank and they deny her loan, she doesn't have to spiral into an existential crisis.
Yeah.
It's not the universe sending a mystical sign that her dream is invalid.
Oh, thank God.
Right. It is simply neutral mechanical data telling her that her current portfolio of power is missing the capital manager nounship. It is a mechanical issue, like a missing gear in a watch. She can either go forge that nounship herself by taking finance classes, or she can use the addition operator to synthesize with a business partner who already wields it.
Okay, so she has the updated proclivity. The river is mapped. She has built the power portfolio. She strikes the nodes. She secures the lease. Now we move to the third branch, presence.
Presence.
This is how she actually shows up in the rooms she enters. And again, the framework violently dismantles our normal pop psychology vocabulary. Presence in the root square chart is absolutely not about being authentic to your baseline mood.
No, it is the exact opposite. What most people call authenticity, walking into a room and just vomiting whatever emotion you happen to be feeling that day. The cognitive behavioral framework classifies as neurological laziness.
Neurological laziness. Wow.
It calls it unselected self-expression. If you walk into every single room at the exact same emotional frequency, regardless of what the room or the people in it actually need, you are not being present. You are just broadcasting your default setting. True presence is an active, rigorous, real-time calibration of 3 specific leaves.
Let's break down these 3 leaves of presence because they function like a highly sensitive social diagnostic machine, and understanding how they work psychologically is fascinating. The first leaf is hope.
Hope is the forward-looking dimension of an interaction. It is the energetic projection of possibility. When you wield hope, you are subconsciously communicating to the other person that whatever interaction we are having right now has a future, that it is leading somewhere positive and constructive. It pulls the interaction forward.
The second leaf is hail. I found this one so fascinating because it's so often skipped in business.
It is skipped all the time. Hail is the recognition dimension. It is the active, explicit acknowledgement of the current reality and the history of the room. It's reading the emotional weather.
Reading the room.
Exactly. Neurologically, hail is about limbic regulation. It's registering that the people you are talking to have a past, they have fears, they have historical context, and that past is sitting in the room with you right now. When you hail someone, you disarm their threat response because you make them feel deeply historically seen.
That makes so much sense. And the third leaf is hype. Now, we normally think of hype as fake, like a crypto bro inflating a coin's value on Twitter or a cheesy infomercial. But here it's defined very differently.
In this architecture, hype is the calibrated energetic intensification. It is the caloric force, the sheer vitality you bring to the environment that makes people actively want to participate in the moment rather than just passively endure it. It is the warmth of real, undeniable aliveness.
And remember the structural rule of the framework: all three leaves, hope, hail, and hype, must be active simultaneously in every single context. You don't pick one. The art, the mastery of presence, is purely in how you calibrate their proportions.
The mix is everything.
Let's apply this to our entrepreneur. She's sitting in the bank, pitching the skeptical loan officer. How does she calibrate?
In the bank, she dials the hail leaf way, way up. She actively acknowledges the risk the bank is taking. She honors their strict financial history. She voices their unsaid fears about restaurant failure rates. By doing that, she regulates the loan officer's nervous system.
She makes them feel safe.
Exactly. She pairs that massive hail with strong hope, a clear, data-driven, optimistic vision of the shop's future success. But she dials the hype down to a very low simmer. She isn't shouting, she isn't waving her arms or doing a cheer routine. She brings a calm, intense, grounded aliveness.
But what happens when the context changes? What happens when she is standing on the sidewalk, handing out free samples of her dairy-free mango sorbet to a tired local family on a hot Saturday afternoon?
The calibration violently flips. The hype leaf is dialed up to maximum amplitude. The energy is infectious, sensory, loud, joyful. The hope is still there, the implicit promise of a great dessert that will make their day better, but the hail is minimal.
Because they don't need the history.
Right. It's just enough to recognize the family's immediate reaction and connect with them. She isn't talking about the history of the neighborhood, she's just hyping the flavor.
If you miss even one of these leaves, the social equation completely collapses. Let's look at the toxic positivity trap. If she brings massive hope to the bank, projecting this massive billionaire future, but she completely misses the hail, she entirely ignores the bank's historical concerns about how many ice cream shops go bankrupt in year one, she comes across as profoundly dismissive and delusional. The loan officer feels unseen and rejects the loan.
Exactly. And conversely, if she brings massive hail saying, I know restaurants are incredibly risky, I know the economy's bad, I know the supply chain's a mess, but she forgets to inject hope and hype, she just sounds like she is mourning a business that hasn't even opened yet. It reads as pure defeat. Presence is the continuous, exhausting, beautiful, real-time calibration of hope, hail, and hype.
Okay, so she is wielding her power portfolio. She is calibrating her presence perfectly. She can hold the room. But as the text brilliantly points out, holding a room is just a temporary state of being. Where is she actually taking them? What is the architecture of the mission itself? This leads us to the fourth and final branch, proclamations.
A proclamation is the what? It is the target. And we have to differentiate this rigorously from what most people do, which is make wishes.
Make wishes?
Yeah. At 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, you say, I want to open an ice cream shop that people love. The framework calls that a low-grade code. It is romantic, it feels good to say, but it is structurally useless. It has no parameters. You cannot measure a shop people love.
Right. A true proclamation in this system is a noun expressed as a perpetual verb. It is a mission statement that acts as a perpetual motion machine. And it requires what the text calls high-grade coding. High-grade coding transforms that wish into an aggressively measurable, undeniable parameter.
Instead of a low-grade wish, our entrepreneur's intellectual leaf processes her desire into this specific code. I am building a 1,200 square foot temperature-controlled retail space specializing in artisanal frozen desserts with at least 50% dairy-free options, achieving a customer return rate of at least 40% within the first 90 days of operation.
Wow. That is verifiable. That is a target you can actually miss. And the paradox is, because it is a target you can miss, it is a target you can actually hit. Now, the proclamations branch is built on three foundational leaves: the intuitive, which handles operational ease, the intellectual, which handles the data and mapping, and the insulated leaf. Let's look incredibly closely at the insulated leaf, because this is the defensive architecture of mission, and it's what saves her life.
The insulated leaf is vital. It is designed to protect your mission from external and internal interference. Every environment contains forces, often very well-meaning forces, often forces that look like success that will completely destabilize your mission if left unmanaged.
Which brings us to the ultimate climax of our entrepreneur's journey. Let's set the scene. It's 90 days after her grand opening. The shop is a massive hit. The neighborhood loves the dairy-free sorbets. The lines are out the door. She hit her 40% return rate. And then the crisis arrives.
The crisis that looks like a gift.
Exactly. It doesn't look like a crisis. It looks like a miracle. Executives from a major regional grocery chain walk in, they taste the product, they are blown away, and they offer her a massive, multi-million-dollar contract to carry her pints in 50 of their stores.
To the outside world, to her parents, to an uninsulated ego, this looks like the ultimate victory. It is massive expansion. It is the dream of every food founder.
But our entrepreneur has been doing the work. She utilizes the critical overlap fruits of the proclamations branch. Remember the overlap, the kinetic action, the pushing the plug into the outlet. Specifically, she sits down on a Sunday night to execute her mission renewal statement.
The audit.
This is a macro-scale loop closure practice. She reviews her high-grade code, and because she forces herself to look at the cold, hard mechanics of her system rather than the flattering glow of the grocery contract, she realizes a terrifying truth.
She looks at her supply chain. She realizes that her sorbet relies on incredibly specific, organic, small-batch fruit suppliers. If she accepts the grocery contract and suddenly has to produce 10,000 pints a month instead of 1,000, that fragile, carefully curated supply chain will completely shatter under the sheer volume.
It'll break.
She'll have to start using commercial syrups. The quality of her artisanal product, the very thing that made her successful, will plummet.
So, relying heavily on her insulated leaf, her defensive architecture, she writes into her mission renewal statement an explicit exclusion. She writes in bold letters, "We are explicitly not pursuing wholesale distribution to grocery stores." She says no to the money. She says no to the ego boost.
And that single, incredibly difficult act of insulation saves her business from imploding under the weight of a loud, demanding external agenda. She avoids mission creep. She protects the core of her proclamation.
It is amazing to see it all come together. We've mapped the shifting river of her proclivities. We've built her unshakable portfolio of power. We've watched her perfectly calibrate her presence in the room, and we've seen her fiercely insulate her proclamation. But this brings us to the ultimate question, the reason we started this entire deep dive.
The root.
Yes, we've built all 4 25% branches. How do we build the root? How does she actually do integrated professional excellence?
Here is the ultimate beautiful math of the root square chart. You don't do the...
You don't do it after all this work.
No. Root emergence is spontaneous. Think of an analogy. If you take 7 highly competitive, incredibly athletic people who love games, you have built their individual branches of capability, and you lock them in a gymnasium with a basketball. You do not have to command them to play.
Okay.
You do not have to force a game to happen. You don't have to schedule it.
Right, the game is inevitable. It just erupts because the conditions are perfect. The chemistry demands a reaction.
Exactly. When you properly construct your proclivities, your power, your presence, and your proclamations, and you aim all 4 of those fully realized branches at the exact same scenario, like opening and running that jalabert shop, the root emerges on its own. The thriving business, the integrated excellence, the deep fulfillment, it is simply what happens when all that architecture cohabits one situation without external coercion. It is spontaneous combustion.
That is incredible. Okay, let's pull all the way back and summarize this entire journey. We started with the frustration of things falling apart, of dreams shattering on Tuesday mornings. We learned that the root square chart is not a magic wand. It is not going to stop macroeconomic downturns. It won't cure a sudden illness. And it won't make the rain stop on your grand opening day. It does not promise a frictionless life.
No, it doesn't. But what it promises and what it consistently delivers if you use it is the locating ability.
The locating ability. When your life is unspooling, when the fog of war is overwhelming you and you want to quit, you no longer have to sit in the dark and label yourself a moral failure. You aren't a victim. You can unroll the blueprint. You can look at your life with clinical, mathematical detachment and diagnose the exact mechanical issue. Is my power failing because I'm missing a specific noun ship? Is my presence miscalibrated because I walked into the room with hope but forgot the hail? Am I stuck in an X over one tyrant loop against my own changing body and need to deploy an inversion kick? You find the broken wire and you fix it.
It replaces paralyzing shame with sheer, actionable mechanics. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering thought, a provocation to take with you.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this entire deep dive talking about how to construct your variables, how to filter your raw passion, and how to position yourself in the equation. But I want you to step outside of yourself for a moment. Consider this. You are not just building your own chart. You are simultaneously acting as a variable in the root square charts of everyone around you.
Oh, wow. I am a variable in someone else's equation.
Exactly. Think about your team, your partner, your kids. Are you acting as a synergistic multiplier for them? Are you the addition operator helping them synthesize their dreams? Or, if you look really closely at the friction you cause, are you the contaminant they desperately need to subtract in order to achieve their own root emergence? Are you the rigid iron pipe of a denominator that is choking off their raw flow? It's easy to audit our own agency, but the true master of this framework understands the structural weight they place on others.
That is a staggering thought to leave on. Am I a multiplier or a contaminant? So observe your own engine today, but also observe the equations you are a part of. Don't try to map all 36 fruits. Don't overwhelm your RAM. Just pick 3 small fruits, place them in your active memory, and see what kind of light you can generate when you plug them in. Until next time, keep designing.